Let's talk to an atheist, a fellow godless heathen. Anthony in Florida is a recent deconvert who's having a little trouble letting go. So welcome, Anthony. How can JMike and I help you out?
Hey, Matt. Hey, JMike. How are you?
Good. Doing well.
Good. I guess if it's okay, I'd like to kind of, it would help if I gave you a little backstory on me and kind of where I come from.
Sure. Let's try and keep it to where it's not, like an hour.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try and keep it brief. I was born into an evangelical Christian family as the grandson of two apostolic Pentecostal pastors, so very Bible literalist, hardcore fundamentalist belief.
Are your grandparents still alive?
My grandfather passed away a few years ago, but my grandmother is still alive, and she's 95 years old now.
Yeah.
It's on my mother's side. So growing up, I enjoyed a lot of like the aspects of the church, like community, relationships, a sense of involvement, feeling that, at the time, a confidence that I was like contributing to something like much greater than me. I never really thought about or trying to define God through anything more than what I had been indoctrinated to believe. I wasn't really taught the way of questioning my beliefs with skepticism. Doubt's kind of a no-no in the Christian doctrine. I know, Matt, just from years of watching the show now, you're kind of familiar with that.
Yeah.
My parents met at Bible college, moved back to my mom's state of Ohio, and they began to raise a family. They had me and my two other brothers, then moved to Florida to be closer to my mom's parents, the grandparents that were ministers after they retired from the church. And then they got divorced, my parents, about 20 years ago. I'm gay, and I am out to most everyone in my entire circle, except some of my mom's family, the religious side. My dad, ironically, is also gay. That's the reason my parents divorced years ago. So he's obviously supportive. Late 2017, I discovered your show, Atheist Experience, and I binged the archived episodes as much as I possibly could. Getting ready for work, my commute to and from work, cleaning the house. The brand new way of considering things was exciting. And I felt like almost every episode there was an argument from another caller that I would have also used to defend my beliefs.
Yeah.
And while I enjoyed hearing the fresh perspectives and learning new concepts, it was also terrifying to discover that I had been taught, or what I had been taught my entire life, and pretty much what shaped my identity up until that point was a lie. Thanks to the show and the various hosts that have been a part of the program throughout the years, I was able to critically examine my beliefs. And as painful as it was, I'm now a non-believer.
Wow, welcome.
I am, however, still, I appreciate it. And I found a lot of, even just virtually found a lot of acceptance, even though I haven't really corresponded with a lot of people. I've just found that the community itself can be really accepting. I am, however, still having to I'm having difficulty fully letting go, even though everything using rationality and reason is telling me I should, because there is such a strong family tie woven into the religion. And it's almost part of, and I guess you could just put this in quotation marks, heritage. The emotional bond stemming from my grandparents, who were phenomenal people, who sincerely held these beliefs. It's hard to untangle that from the religion. I always had expectations from family that I'd become a preacher or a pastor or a worship leader. And I was really heavily involved when I was a part of the church. And while I've stepped away from the church and its teachings, there is even almost a sense of guilt for discarding all of that. And I would even love to be an active member in the atheist community. I really like to volunteer and help. And would eventually like to speak to other people in my shoes to help them find their way out. But I can't help but at this time feel like I would be like tearing down all their work, my grandparents, that they dedicated their lives to.
What's wrong with that?
Emotional conflict to work. What's wrong with?
So I can appreciate the fact that you think you might be tearing down the work that your grandparents did their whole life, but what's wrong with that?
I guess it's hard for me. I mean, this is maybe another part of it, but it is hard to accept that they dedicated their entire lives in a sincere and honest way. They dedicated their entire lives to something that was totally untrue. Like it's hard for me to imagine that much waste, and I just think of it as a really, really sad situation. So
wait, well, real fast, you said that you want to help, like you would want to get in the community and help and things like that, but it sounds like you're biting on the bullet for the sake of which it's commendable in a way, but I mean, how long are you going to do that and prevent some good that could come out of it? I mean, what if you're the voice that helps a lot of people and you kind of wait on that for, somebody else's sake? I don't know if that's fair to you. You're already going through the process of having this kind of tear your world down, so to speak. Right. And so I don't know why you'd want to bite that bullet for them in that sense.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to explain. I guess just being really close with them and being partially raised by them, it would feel almost like a betrayal, but I guess that's just being, I guess I have to actually learn how to fully separate what is family and what is emotional from what is just a construct.
Yeah. When I was asking you what was wrong with that, I wasn't suggesting that there wasn't something wrong with it. I want to know what your thoughts were about that. And in many cases, I can completely understand there are things that might feel like a betrayal of family, irrespective of their actual beliefs. It's like, I don't spend time arguing with my mom about religion anymore. She knows my position. I'm not hiding anything from her. We've had arguments about it, but also my grandmother, on my dad's side, she wrote me a wonderful letter about how she believed. And I opted to never really have a detailed conversation with her, not because I was afraid to talk her out of her religion or anything else. It's just that my relationship with my grandmother was worth more to me than whether or not she believed. And it was clear to her, it's clear to me that my grandmother loved me dearly, whether I believed or not. And that whether my disbelief was not in any way going to impact whether or not she and I could sit around and play cards and bullshit and talk with each other. And when she told me that she was voting for Hillary in 2016 because she couldn't stand Trump, despite what the rest of the family might have thought, it was all great moments. So that's the only reason I was asking. What I will say is it gets easier over time, and you're going to reach a point where you are completely comfortable with who you are and what you're doing, and to what extent you are an activist with regard to secularism at all. In the same way that you're going to reach a point where you're comfortable with how comfortable you are as an activist with regard to gay rights issues. Family is tricky, and we cut them a lot of slack. And I fully expect that you would. I do. I don't see that there's anything wrong with cutting them some slack. But if I was worried, I come from a long line of preachers and deacons and things like that. It never occurred to me that to say, I feel like I'm undermining the work they did, and that's a problem, because I'm fucking thrilled to be undermining the work they did and the work that I did. And I can still love them and appreciate them and their beliefs while or their right to their beliefs while I am actively undermining those.
Yeah. Interestingly, at around 2017, because you mentioned like the gay thing, and that's something I've had to work through. In 2017, I became like fully comfortable with and open about my sexuality, which was a tremendous hurdle after growing up in the church and enduring all the psychological trauma from their opinions about homosexuality, and as a child being told, you know, God hates that, etc. And while that was a huge like feat and liberating to overcome, you know, now at that time, like late 2017, when I discovered, you know, atheism and learned the truth about that was, aside from what my church taught me, atheism was, and it was a whole new world. You know, I had all of this to examine and reevaluate my entire belief system. So it was like I conquered a hill only to have a mountain on the other side. So like it was a whole other level of examining, you know, I was comfortable with my sexuality, and then I got over that, and then it was this whole other thing which made my world then really fall apart, because I had invested my entire life and been taught to invest everything in my life to dedicate it to that religion. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to, I have to think about it in a way that I would be ultimately working to accomplish something good, by kind of tearing down what, even though they had good intentions, like, and I know you mentioned it on the previous call, they were missionaries to Thailand for 30 years. They were pastors. You know, every time they did a mission trip, they take a suitcase of their own clothes and go take them over there and give them to the people there. So you know, they did good things and they helped a lot of people. But
my uncle was a medical missionary to Thailand many years ago. It's possible that they know each other, that they worked with the same groups doing mission trips there. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I say cut yourself some slack, Anthony. You are both a decent person, a fine secularist, and someone who doesn't want to offend or bother the people in your family who value you. And all of those are good things.
Yeah, and I have to. Well, I appreciate that. I think I just have to place not so much emphasis on is it going to affect, or what am I doing to my family? It's more of I am doing something good now that I know there is something better out there. Then
you got to be a little selfish. I mean, you put yourself through some of this, or not put yourself through, but you had to go through some of this in virtue of those claims. And I mean, you could do some good from that perspective of helping someone very similar in your shoes. But you know, I don't know how much you have to take the worst of that, you know, before it's gonna. From my perspective, I had a similar situation where people around me, like my friends and things, I didn't want to, because I didn't grow up more in the religious aspect. It was more the spiritual, you know, new age stuff. And it was weird for me because I felt like I'd lose a lot of friends, or people would, you know, for the same criticisms I gave to science or things, that I would be kind of casted in that light. And all it did was prevent me. All it did was slow down myself. And I wish years ago I would have picked up a book sooner, right? I wish I would have cared about school. I wish I would have done so much more. And all I did was prevent myself from growing by trying to be nice about it. And at some point, you just got to throw that to the side. I mean, you're a good person. There's no question about that from hearing your call. And you put yourself, you've been put through hell in that perspective. You know, I'd try to turn that around as best as you can and reflect that on someone else, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can kind of use it as ammunition to really strive for something good, like all of the the baggage, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you have direct access to what it feels like to have that, you know, that experience. And if anybody comes to you with those kind of problems, I mean, you're going to be able to immediately relate to that. And the sooner that you start navigating in that area, the sooner you can provide some answers for people to postulate. I mean, I always take the idea that as a skeptic, listen, don't even listen to everything I say and take it. Go look at the independent reasons beyond what I just say, because that's going to be, I want everybody to question what I say in every aspect, even if it comes off like, oh, you think you know everything, which, people get in this. I feel like if you're a skeptic, you've gotten that from people from opposition. And it's like, no, question what I say, because, the truth has nothing to fear from investigation. And the second you can acknowledge that and help people, the arguments are going to do the work. You're not breaking down your family or anything because of anything you did. These arguments stand on their own for the validity that they have. And so, any like me, Matt, or anybody else, we're, a lot of the times it's not like we're just popping this shit out in our head. It's, these are arguments that work. They have they're sound, they have some basis, and they're independent of how I feel about it.
Yep. I tell you, I think we lost Anthony. Yeah.
So now we're not the good people now. So
yeah. But it looks like we still have all the other callers. So I think maybe Anthony may have disconnected. But by the way, Anthony, by all means, reach out to Recovering from Religion. Reach out to the Psychotherapy Project. Find some interactive people on our Discord or other places where you can interact to get more feedback on, and call us back and let us know how you're doing and everything.